Many fed up with the increasing prices of fast food restaurants like McDonald's. Customers taking to social media to deliver their supersized frustrations.
Grocery costs are also up 2.2% last month compared to last year around the same time.
Midnight in Buffalo. The golden arches of McDonald's still shine like a beacon, but inside, the seats are empty. Cold fries sit untouched. Burgers lie abandoned on their trays like a warning sign. This is no longer about a bad meal. It is the clearest picture yet of a relationship unraveling. Canadians are turning their backs on the American brands they once embraced for generations. This rupture did not start in the kitchen, it began in politics. When President Trump imposed a 35% tariff on Canadian goods, he wasn't just targeting lumber, steel, or agriculture, he was striking directly at trust. And in today's world, trust is measured by consumer choices. Refusing a fast food meal has become as powerful as a diplomatic statement. Across highways from Portland to Miami, the same scene repeats itself. American chains that once buzzed with Canadian travelers now stand half empty. No more Ontario plates pulling up outside Dairy Queen, no more Quebec families crowding at subway counters. Instead, there is hesitation, because every dollar spent in the U.S. now feels like a vote for policies that damage Canada.
Trade tensions with the United States helped spark a shift in consumer habits. More Canadians choosing homegrown products, prompting grocers to stock and spotlight more domestic goods.
A plate of noodles at Panda Express is not only bland, but seen as a symbol of cultural exploitation. A steak at Outback is no longer indulgence, but a bitter reminder. Why pay hundreds for American beef while Canadian farmers struggle against trade barriers set in Washington? The breaking point is McDonald's, the brand once hailed as the perfect face of the American dream. For Canadians, a box of fries in the U.S. has become proof of systemic decline. In Canada, McDonald's invests in cleaner ingredients, modern technology, and environmental standards.
Yeah, we're definitely buying Canadian. We're definitely buying in Canada.
The push to buy Canadian at grocery stores is still going strong.
In the U.S., the same golden logo hides decaying stores, broken ice cream machines, careless service, and poverty wages. One brand, two realities, and every Canadian who walks into a U.S. McDonald's feels the difference. This is about more than taste. When Canadians pick a family faux shop in Vancouver over Panda Express in Oregon, it's not just about flavor, it's about identity. When they buy organic ice cream in Montreal instead of stopping at Dairy Queen in New York, it's about community and sustainability. When they skip the Big Mac in Detroit and choose a handcrafted burger in Toronto, it's about principle. They will not fund a political system that treats Canada as a rival. Each meal becomes a silent vote. Each skipped purchase was a message of disappointment. Canadians are no longer pushing back only in Parliament or at trade negotiations. They are pushing back in everyday life. And that is the danger. When trust erodes at this level, no advertisement can repair it. This is no longer about sales figures. This is soft power collapsing. McDonald's, Dairy Queen, Subway, Red Lobster, once symbols of friendship and cultural bridges America proudly exported to the world, are now being rejected by their closest neighbor. And if Canada walks away, how long before the rest of the world follows? That question lingers like the glow of McDonald's at midnight. If the symbols once tied to trust now stand as signs of decline, then the issue is no longer price or taste. It is something deeper. America is losing the ability to convince the world it is worth standing beside. And when even its closest ally begins to walk away, it is not just a business failure. It is a diplomatic failure of a generation.
Inflation is dead. It's dead. We have no inflation. Think of it. Our stock market hit record highs.
President Trump claims that inflation is dead. New data out today tells a different story. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that consumer prices rose 0.7% last month, pushing the annual inflation rate to its highest point.
America is facing a fracture it never imagined. The bond that tied the U.S. and Canada for 70 years is unraveling, not with an explosion, but with a quiet, merciless tear. Tariffs, the weapon President Trump used to ignite a trade war, have turned back against the nation, striking American families and businesses. While Washington fixated on China and Europe, Canada quietly signed trade deals with 11 nations: Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, India, Brazil, Norway, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom. A series of handshakes in Ottawa, while the United States was left outside the room. This is not diplomacy. This is economic warfare disguised as cooperation. The question now is not whether America will lose, but how much and how fast. The impact cuts across industries like falling dominoes. It begins with retail, where one American giant built 47 distribution centers and employed 18,000 workers solely to serve Canadian consumers. That lifeline, worth $847 million annually, is evaporating as Korean electronics, Japanese appliances, and Australian food products flow directly into Canada. Early projections warn of a 23% revenue drop and layoffs across northern operations, with stock prices already down 8%.
I must say, I learned that 90% of handbags that are sold in the US are made in foreign countries. And so it's been really difficult dealing with the tariffs.
From retail, the collapse spread into automotive. Detroit's legacy of integrated production, Michigan components assembled in Ontario before returning as finished systems, is unraveling. Japanese and Korean suppliers now enjoy a 15% tariff advantage, replacing American parts and courting Canadian factories with joint ventures. What once symbolized North American strength now risks becoming a liability, as analysts whisper of a great reshuffling of the entire auto supply chain. Then comes agriculture, the beating heart of rural America. For decades, $2.3 billion worth of grain, soybeans, and processed foods cross the northern border each year. But Australian wheat enters Canada 12% cheaper, Brazilian soybeans arrive with faster clearance, and the river of American exports is slowing to a trickle. Farmers in North Dakota, Minnesota, and Montana, where Canadian sales once represented half their livelihood, are watching silos overflow and prices collapse, prompting warnings of a new dust bowl born not of drought but of diplomacy.
That Trump's tariffs would drive prices higher and higher. U.S. inflation accelerated in the month of June, according to the latest report, with the consumer price index rising 2.7% from a year earlier.
The damage deepens in energy. One U.S. corporation once earned $3.4 billion annually moving Canadian crude and natural gas south. Now Canada turns to Norway, the UK, and Australia, partners promising not dependency but shared processing on Canadian soil and access to Asian markets. Oil that once powered American refineries is diverted overseas. Refinery utilization tumbles to 67%, stock values drop 15%, and analysts label it North American energy fragmentation. Even the invisible arteries of technology are being severed. 12 American data centers once processed millions of Canadian transactions every day. But new trans-Pacific cables, Swiss financial safeguards, Singaporean servers, and British AI collaborations are building direct routes that bypass the US entirely. What was once a geographic advantage is dissolving in a world where data travels at light speed, leaving American firms facing the decoupling of North American digital infrastructure. And finally, the dominoes strike manufacturing and finance. U.S. factories that relied on Canadian inputs now watch Japan and Germany lure assembly lines north of the border. American banks, once indispensable intermediaries, are losing $4.1 billion in Canadian business to Swiss, Singaporean, and London-based competitors. Shares tumble 12%, while analysts describe the process as nothing less than the balkanization of North American finance. The numbers are merciless: $11.2 billion in direct losses for these seven giants, translating into $26.9 billion in economic damage once ripple effects spread. From Buffalo to Detroit, from Fargo to Bellingham, entire towns built on Canadian trade now face extinction. This is not just about statistics. It is about workers leaving shuttered plants, families watching their communities dissolve, and a nation that no longer commands loyalty from its closest neighbor. Canada has proven it can prosper without U.S. intermediation, and that is the most dangerous precedent. If Canada can do it, why not Mexico? Why not Europe? Why not every ally searching for independence from America's shadow? The dominoes are already falling. The thread is fraying. Each contract replaced, each alliance rebuilt, and when it finally breaks, America will lose more than trade. It will lose the very foundation of its global leadership. The question is no longer if it happens. The question is how close we already are to the edge.
President Donald Trump faced some booing from the crowd at the FIFA Club World Cup final. Philadelphia acknowledges that the Trump administration's general crackdown on immigration could impact their World Cup event.
The countdown to the 2026 World Cup is ticking louder by the day, but instead of celebration, a political and economic earthquake is threatening to rip marquee matches out of U.S. soil. What should have been America's golden stage to showcase its soft power to billions is turning into a brutal stress test for the Trump administration's trade and immigration policies. FIFA isn't bluffing. With just 90 days' notice, entire blocks of group stage matches could be pulled from the United States and sent north or south of the border. And here's the chilling part: this backup plan is already locked and loaded. The cause? A web of tariffs and visa barriers tightening around every part of the tournament. Visas like fortress walls. 12 countries are outright banned from entering, including Iran, already qualified for the tournament. Tens of thousands of fans are raced from the stands with the stroke of a policy pen. For those still eligible, a $250 visa integrity fee and wait times stretching over 300 days have made attending the World Cup nearly impossible. Tariffs strangling the supply chain. Every steel beam for upper decks, every LED scoreboard, every floodlight system is stuck at border checkpoints under new rules. Costs are skyrocketing, timelines slipping by weeks or even months. Stadiums are being forced to cut features and swap in cheaper materials, the kind the world will see clearly on live broadcasts.
We want them to come, we want them to celebrate, we want them to watch the game, but when the time is up, they'll have to go home.
The result? A double disaster for both the economy and America's reputation. Economy. Billions in tourism revenue could vanish if matches shift to Canada or Mexico. Hotels, restaurants, and bars, geared up for a record-breaking summer, could instead face empty rooms, mounting debt, and staff layoffs. Tens of thousands of seasonal workers, servers, translators, security personnel would lose the income they counted on to cover months of rent, medical bills, or debt payments. Reputation. The World Cup is a declaration of a nation's ability to deliver on the world stage. Losing matches not because of natural disaster or war, but because of domestic policy would leave a stain not easily erased. International organizers could start seeing the U.S. as a risky bet for future global events.
It is a great achievement to bring the World Cup next year, the FIFA World Cup in 26 here in the United States, together with Mexico and Canada.
Meanwhile, Canada and Mexico are quietly seizing the moment. Canada boasts political stability, world-class sports infrastructure, and fast, straightforward visa processing, visa-free for many countries. Vancouver and Toronto are already upgrading their stadiums to FIFA's highest standards. Mexico brings the pedigree of hosting the 1970 and 1986 World Cups, legendary venues like Estadio Azteca and BBVA, and an open-door entry policy for much of Latin America, fans who could fill stadiums with just a short flight. If FIFA pulls the trigger, the map of the World Cup will be redrawn. The U.S., once the centerpiece, could find itself pushed to the sidelines, watching Canada and Mexico take the spotlight. And this wouldn't just be a sporting loss, it would be a diplomatic collapse. The world won't remember who won the opening match, but they will remember how the U.S. lost it. In the game of soft power, the image of empty seats, relocated matches, and fans turned away at the border will outlast any highlight reel. The question now isn't whether America has the money or the stadiums. The question is, will the U.S. tear down the policy walls to keep the World Cup, or will it go down in history as the nation that lost it, not on the field, but in the meeting room?
We want to send a strong signal to the rest of Canada and to the world that Canada is not divisible.
I have always said that I support Alberta's sovereignty within a united Canada, and I think that is the viewpoint of many of the premiers.
Canada is in the midst of a political earthquake. After Ottawa flatly rejected any possibility of negotiating provincial autonomy or secession, the western provinces, led by Alberta and Saskatchewan, have unleashed an unprecedented counteroffensive. This is no longer about complaints or symbolic protests. This is a soft secession strategy, rewriting laws, restructuring the balance of power, and acting as if the Federation is nothing more than a name on paper. The Prime Minister's message was clear. The Constitution offers no path for provinces to leave the Federation, and national unity is non-negotiable. But instead of calming the situation, his words were seen in the West as arrogance and dismissive.
Part of the conversation is about the amazing opportunities for Alberta today and for Canada today to build.
In Alberta and Saskatchewan, frustration has been simmering for years over tightened federal energy policies, unfair distribution of federal funds, and the feeling of being abandoned in national decision-making. Within 48 hours of Trudeau's statement, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and even Manitoba issued a joint declaration. If Ottawa won't discuss autonomy, they will act as an autonomous bloc. Their plan includes coordinated management of resources and infrastructure, synchronizing legislation and budgets to reduce federal influence, exploring the creation of a regional trade authority inspired by blocs like the EU's Schengen Agreement.
The Premier has repeatedly said she supports Alberta staying in Canada, but she and her Justice Minister have called on Elections Alberta to let the vote go ahead so the people can decide.
Relying on Section 92 of the Constitution Act, which grants provinces control over resources, education, and certain economic areas, they are pushing the limits of provincial authority as far as legally possible. Provincial sovereignty laws allowing provinces to refuse enforcement of federal legislation deemed harmful to provincial interests. Creation of the Western Energy Consortium to take full control of approving oil, gas, and renewable energy projects, cutting out federal agencies. Direct negotiations with U.S. states like Montana, Texas, and North Dakota, opening trade offices in Houston and Washington, D.C. Exploring independent policing, pension funds, and security models to reduce dependence on national systems. Ottawa initially dismissed this as symbolic